You're a bit knackered, Marnus. You batted for 86 overs. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling fine at the moment. I'm sure I'm going to go on a downhill slide from here, though. I need some food. But no, I'm feeling all right. Got more runs to get tomorrow.
Just that first session, Marnus, when it seemed like it was more about survival. You went through that phase, both of you were 30, 40 balls, not many runs came. How enjoyable was it? And secondly, like how important was it for you to just get through? And you didn't know once you got through, there were runs in the offing after that.
Yeah, I sort of touched on this before, but growing up, playing a lot on the Gabba really helps with that because you know there's light at the end of the tunnel. So you know you've got to put in the hard work early. Knowing the conditions, obviously playing in Brisbane with the bouncy conditions certainly helps. Helps you just let the ball go. You understand the game. The tempo isn't as fast as other venues. You're not hitting as many balls. You're letting a lot of balls go. So all those things really helped. And then obviously to be able to then come out after lunch and after tea and be able to put the pressure on. Obviously they try to amend their short at length and they try to bowl a bit fuller, which created a few more scoring options for us.
It's only your second test match here, but does it already hold a special place in your heart given what you did against New Zealand in today's effort?
Yeah, once again, I love this venue. I love playing in Perth because of the conditions are so similar to Brisbane, and I've had some good success in Brisbane, so it's really nice to be able to come to a ground where the characteristics of the wicket are very similar.
Marnus, how much do you and Steve feed off each other, both when you're in the middle and also at practice?
I think we use each other really well at training and in the middle, just as bouncing boards. Like today, there's a few things where he's like, "Oh, how's it looking? What do you like?" And for me, it's just positive reinforcement. It looks good, mate. That pass looking good, or vice versa. If he's seeing that I'm getting outside of my box, he'll subtly say, just be patient or watch the ball, or So I think it's like that in any partnership, but probably with me and Steve, there's probably a little bit more technical stuff as well, just because we talk a lot about batting and it's been well documented about his grip and how it feels and stuff like that.
How was he going at then? I think he looked like he was struggling with the bat. Maybe it wasn't the hip, but he got in the zone pretty quickly once he was there.
I think he's still, with that grip, his grip, sometimes it just doesn't feel as good for him, and I think that's what he'll signal sometimes when when he shanks one or mishits one. I think that's just him trying to find that perfect spot for his hands on the bat.
Marnus, did you and him actually talk much about these technical changes? Obviously, given how much you guys talk about batting, were you part of those changes? Yeah,
we certainly spoke a lot about it. He's sort of done this, the no trigger for a while. I think he started in Sri Lanka in the one-dayers, where he actually started just standing still. Obviously on the slow wickets, he wanted to get his momentum into the ball and not moving across the stumps as much. So that's when it started, and then I think he did it against Sri Lanka in the Test series, and then obviously he's done it since then. So that's what's feeling comfortable for him now, but I'm sure give it 12 months, there'll certainly be something different. Yeah, I mean, like all of us, I think everyone's always changing, trying to get better, and sometimes you just go down different loopholes and different field, but this is what's feeling really good for him at this stage.
Have you seen him that better?
He averaged 100 in a series in 2019 where I think the conditions were tough, it was nipping around, and he made batting look ridiculously easy. From an onlooker, that's the best I've seen him bat, but in terms of feel, I don't know. He would say that looked ugly. That's just open stance. Playing the nipping ball, being a bit more front on. That's what he felt was right for that time. But he averaged 110 or something for the series. So I don't really think it matters how Steve Smith bats. He's going to find a way to score runs with that.
What about Usman Khawaja, Marnus? You batted a bit with him at you at 3 and him at 4 in the Shield. Does he go into a different zone or a different tempo when he's opening?
I think one thing that's so good with Uz is that he's that's one thing that I've really learnt a lot from him is his tempo. He's got such an even tempo through his whole game. Where sometimes with me, I'm sort of a bit more of a roller coaster. But that's one thing I really enjoy with him, and I think that's why opening suits him so much, because he's just got such an even tempo. He scales up, like you said, plays the situation, understanding that when Roston came on early, let's put pressure on him, so he takes it on, really reads the game well. But like I said, he's an amazing player. I mean, his last 12 months especially, but his whole career, I mean, he's always been, beautiful to watch.
Marnus, just one on, I guess, the fact that both you and Uzi got to face a lot of balls in the Shield before you came here. Like, how much does that help in terms of getting into rhythm for a Test series? Obviously, a number of the multi-format guys have that long sort of white ball stretch, and I guess Steve was a little bit different because he wasn't really playing in those games, but he was practicing a lot. But yeah, the Shield, how much does it help?
Yeah, I mean, it helps a lot. Obviously, some of the wickets we played on were a bit tougher, so that doesn't always do great things for your confidence, because you start sort of going, actually, maybe I should change this, or maybe I've got to do this. So sometimes it can be not so good. But I think whenever you're scoring runs leading up in that format, it gives you confidence. It gives you, that ability. It doesn't matter who you're playing, that you go out there and you trust your game, just because you got runs behind you. And sometimes when you haven't played for a while, that can be, sometimes you start searching for it a bit more. You get away from the process a little bit. But, I mean, we're talking about the guys that are probably the most experienced and the best at doing that. The likes of Steve and Dave, they've been doing that for, 12 years. Changing formats, adapting their game. So we'll leave those guys to it. They're pretty good. And, I mean, unfortunately, there's just no opportunity. So it's not something that I think there's a fix for.
And
I
just,
was going to say, do you see this as a great opportunity? 154 not out, you already made one double century.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you're not out overnight on 150, the next stop is 200. So it's just going to be for me tomorrow. Just if I'm able to stick to the process for long enough, if I do, I'm sure I'll get there. But I mean, put that out of your mind aside. You just got to take it ball by ball, and if the 200 does come, that's great. But more importantly, just trying to get as many runs as we can in this first innings and put the pressure on the West Indies.
Marnus, with the treatment that Steve got at the last drinks break, is that related to the hip thing he was talking about the other day, or is there something else at play?
Great question. Yeah, I'm assuming it's with the hip. It was on that right side. I think he was getting treatment, so I assume he was just getting a little bit of trigger point there just to loosen his hip up, because I think it was locking up a little bit. But I don't really have too much on that.
Oh yeah, so one of the things that you have proven pretty good at in Test cricket so far is like you make a good start when you meet a new opponent. Got runs against England first up, New Zealand, Pakistan. Do you think there's anything to that, to facing an opponent first up and getting runs like that? And then is it helpful in a confidence sense going on that you've kind of got ahead of them from the word go kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely. I actually said this to Trent Copeland in our post-match chat. The ability in any format, if we're talking club cricket, under 19 tournaments, Test matches, Shield cricket, the ability to start your series well, just trying to be as disciplined as you can, just getting runs in that first one or two games just changes the whole dynamic of your series, gives you confidence, gives you that ability to trust your game. You're really in tune with your process. You understand how you're playing. So yeah, absolutely. I always try and make a really concerted focus on every game, but specifically that first game of the series to get runs on the board in that first game certainly sets up it for the team for that game, but also can set you up for the summer.
Couple more folks, bro.
Marnus spoke a lot about Steve's changes that he's made. Just last summer, there were a few times you got out like the fourth, fifth
Yeah.
That one. So, did you have to make any changes at all for this summer? And how much did it help in between that summer and this summer? You got to play test matches outside and kind of got to work more on your batting overall.
Yeah, I certainly, I've loved the opportunity to go and play in the subcontinent, play in Sri Lanka. It was a really good challenge. I certainly looked at a lot of that stuff from last summer. Once again, I think, my game changes so much and so often that it's hard to keep track of where I was at that stage. But where it's feeling at the moment, it's feeling all right. I've certainly felt better, but it's nice to be scoring runs when you're not absolutely feeling 100%. I certainly, my stance is probably more closed off, I think, from what it was last summer. I'm probably not as rigid as I was last summer. I feel like I'm a little bit more relaxed in my hands. So I think that's helping me on that short ball and that back foot punch, so I don't really get stuck and then start fending the ball away from my face.
Just back on the switching formats quickly in short periods of time, how difficult have you found it going from white ball cricket, where you are throwing your hands through a contact point is further out, to coming to a place like here where leaving the ball is really important, playing under your eyes, and the cover drive's not really an option in your first 30, 40, 50 balls if the ball is moving and bouncing? Greeny talked about the challenge of having to do it for the first time for him. How difficult a challenge is that, going from one to the other in a short space of time?
Yeah, I think for everyone, I think they have a set. I grew up on red ball cricket. Dating back to our under-19s tournaments was red ball. So I grew up in that space. So I think that comes more naturally to me, is going back to my roots as such, or what I've always played is red ball cricket. Try to have a nice technique, line the ball up. So I think that is probably an example for someone like Davey, who probably came through the white ball system. He tends to hit a lot more coming into red ball cricket because he's got to go the other way, where I probably go the other way. In white ball cricket, I'm hitting to try and actually get my weight into the ball a bit more. You can't just wait and lay the ball off as much in white ball cricket. You've got to sort of come at the ball. So working on my game a little bit, trying to find out how I can get a little bit more power in front of the wicket in white ball cricket. So I think, for different people, it's certainly a different type of preparation, depending on who you are. Obviously, the likes of Woozy has played a lot of red ball cricket with shield cricket and stuff. So, that obviously makes it easier.